I'm going to do a really fast yet pretty impactful edit for you guys on this little girl. If you have any questions, please post them below. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are in Adobe Camera Raw, and as always, I like to minimize the green. Green is not my favorite for summer colors and stuff like that. So I'm just going to come down here to Color Mixer and just reduce the greens down like that. Now, back up in Basic, I just want to make sure that these highlights are minimized, and we'll reduce some of the whites as well, not too terribly much though. Now our temperature, we can just joggle back and forth here and try and find something that is more appealing. I think a little bit of warmth is warranted. And in the detail here, we'll just sharpen it up a bit because this was shot with my 85 1.2, so all the images are always pretty not even remotely sharp, right? If I shot this with my Sony, it would have been way different. And that looks okay. I'm trying to reduce the noise because I don't want it to be too grainy. But if we look in, there's, because this is the 85 1.2, there's quite a bit of chromatic aberration. So we're going to come into optics and we're going to defringe that by pulling the purple to the right. There's quite a bit of red as well, so we're going to bump that up. We just have to be careful that the reds don't turn gray, right? Like you can see it in the lips starting to do that. And I'm just going to do the green too, just because usually that lens will have all of those issues. Okay, good enough. I think that's fairly good. I'm going to fix all of this. Yeah, good one. Good enough. Okay, open like this, and now I'm going to right click, new smart object via copy, double click on this separate image file, come back into my basics. I'm going to reduce my contrast. I'm going to pull up the blacks, pull up the shadows, reduce the exposure, reduce the clarity, turn off sharpening. And I might actually get this just a little warmer here. Come back to the color mixer and just reduce those greens down a little bit more. Now as far as the luminance is concerned, we will reduce that a bit too, and the oranges a bit, and the yellows. Okay, click OK. So now you have two separate image files, one here and one here. And all we're going to do is add a mask, grab a black brush, make sure it's a soft brush, and we're just going to paint that off of our subject, like this. But you know what we have to do, right? Paint that back onto the green leaves, because we don't want to have 3 leaves that are totally different than all the others, because that would be lame. I'm just going to zoom in and just make sure that everything is where it should be. There we go. That looks better. Remember, just hit your X key if you want to toggle between the black and the white brush. which is hiding and revealing, yes? Okay. Oops. See? Toggle. Okay. That looks fine. Make sure you get the whole foot. You can see I'm avoiding those hot spots already because I need to reduce those anyway. I'm just going to paint a little bit more light over here. Just a bit. Okay, come back to my properties and my mask, feather that out, turn it on and off. That looks fine. Flatten my image, duplicate my layer, just grab a regular brush and I'm just going to paint this away. Like so. Same thing with here. I'm just sampling the colors that are already existing in the image and creating a little bit of an effect so that you don't really notice those overblown sun spackly places. Same thing with this, just paint those back a little bit so they're not distracting. So the brighter parts of an image will always make your eye go to them, so that's why you want to really prevent that from happening by adding in a little bit of colors and stuff that will cover it up. And for those of you that like to use blur, you don't need to. You can just actually paint directly onto the image, and then that way you don't have that yucky fake blur thing going on. I always like to paint back the darks a bit as well, keeping the whole entire focus on the subject. So it's before and after. I'm just going to add a mask and gently take off a little bit of this area right here because I went a little too heavy-handed on it. Always want to make sure that those things are not directly on my subject too much. Like that. Okay, before and after, we're going to go ahead and flatten this just like that. And a new blank layer. Now if we look down at her little leg here, we need to do the same thing. As long as you sample the colors that are already there, it should be fine. And also, because I shot this completely wide open at 1.2, other than her face, the majority of this will probably not be super sharp, so this is perfectly okay to do. I'm just going to make sure that I didn't spray any of that over onto this part. Okay? All right, so that's before, that's after, that's perfectly fine. We're going to flatten this. I'm going to duplicate my layer. I see so much green in her hair and her face here, so I'm going to go to my hue saturation, grab this little guy, just sample it, and you can see it's in the yellows, but I need to add back some red or pink to it, just because it's far too greeny yellow on her face. And I think if we look at the before and after, that's fine, and I like the effect that it's had on the entire image, so I'm actually just going to leave it. So let's flatten that again. This time duplicate, come into my retouch set, grab my frequency separation, click OK, go to my low file, and I'm going to reduce everything here. These are my typical settings. If you're not sure how to use frequency separation in the mixer brush, I do have another video to show how this set works, and I'll post it here. So little circles, little tiny circles, really helps quickly create nice skin on your subject. And just remember to adjust your brush to the size of the area that you are affecting. And I know I say that all the time, but it's true. And then down to her little legs. And I know that by painting that really bright highlight off with just a regular brush, it lacks texture in the skin. But I will show you how to bring texture back if you have to do that. It's not a big deal. It's definitely part of digital painting methods and stuff, but I do use a lot of digital painting methods for my photography. So wrinkles and dresses, the mixer brush in frequency separation is fantastic to smooth them out, especially if it's, you know, just rough. And this is kind of like a bridal quality tool, and I find that it wrinkles a lot. So I'm just gonna come in here and really quickly come in and brush off a lot of these wrinkles in her little dress. It's great for hair too, if you want to just make the hair look a little bit softer. Okay, let's take a look. Close the whole group though, turn it on and off. And you know what, that's perfect. That's perfect. We're just gonna go ahead and flatten it, and now I'm gonna go in my retouch set to my dodge and burn actions. I'm gonna click on my dodge, make sure I have a regular brush, and I'm going to pull my flow down to around 4, and I'm just going to gently add a couple of highlights to her skin, like this. Don't worry about going too heavy-handed, because you can either brush it back with your black brush, or you can just reduce the opacity of the entire layer. when you want to do her little lips and her eyes, little Cupid's bow. Definitely the eyes, add some light in there. And that looks so much better already. So, what about burning? Well, we're going to burn in the shadow a little bit here, just like this, because there should be shadows right next to her. Just adds a bit of depth as well as on her face and on the hair over here. So cute. So I'm looking at over here on her leg. I just need a bit more of a highlight right there, and probably a little bit right there. Side of her dress. Just have to kind of follow where the light is naturally in this one. Then we're going to burn this over here. Burn this here. Burn this here. There we go. Okay, so let's just take a look. Close the group, on and off. So you can really see how much depth and contrast that's added back, but we're going to pull the dodge down a bit because it is a little bright, and that looks so much better. Okay, everything looks good. Flatten that again. Now what I'm going to do is another dodge burn layer. This time though, I'm just going to focus on the environment. So I'm going to pull it up pretty strong to around 30, and I like to create almost like a vignette so that the eye is always focused right on the subject. So just play with that. You can always reduce and feather it out so that it blends. And with the dodge, I'm just going to add a little bit more light in here, kind of like that. Before and after, reduce the overall effect right about there. Okay, it's looking nice, not too bad. We do need to do some touch-ups on her skin color, so we're going to come back into hue saturation. I'm going to see that that is definitely red. Up here is red as well, but this one's really red, so we're gonna just pull that red down a little bit like so. Invert that mask, and then make sure that you can just paint that red off her leg so that it matches better with the rest of her body. Just a wee bit. And we're gonna add cherry cheeks and lips to her face so all of that will match. So flatten that, that's perfect. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to come into my new set, my Bliss set, and we're going to just find an action that's going to start the overall finishing of coloring with this one. So I think I'm going to start with Fall Walk and just see what this does. So as always, we'll close everything out. And I do like this one, but it's a little heavy. So we're going to do it to right about there. You can also paint some of that effect off her if you want, because it is a bit red, and I don't want her skin to be so red after I just focused on making it not that way. You will notice though that when you start taking red off, that their skin will start looking green again, but don't let that distract you because it's fine. And just feather that out. The next one is adding more pastels, and that's really pretty. That's adding a little bit more red and stuff. I love it. This is darkness. So with the darkness, you can decide how much you want of this or not. So just use a black brush. I'll start with painting it off of the little girl. And this is all personal preference. You can do whatever you want with these actions. They're fully customizable. But all you're doing when you purchase these actions is you're just buying a little piece of my creativity, which can be fun if you're finding yourself in a rut. And feather that out. The next one is this. I love this. This is so pretty. That's perfect. And here's the final finish, but I don't actually care for that in this one. It's a little too yellow. I think right about there is awesome. So that's before and that's after. And then if you wanted to, you could reduce the entire group to suit. I think that's super cute. I'm going to flatten that just like that, and I do want to go up really quick to my chemistry set. Where is it? Here. And I just want to add that drama queen again because I really like how it looks on a lot of these. Okay. That is so cute. That just added enough of a little bit of color toning to make it more interesting to me. Okay, flatten it. Now the last thing that we're going to do is go back to my retouch set and click on Cherry Cheeks and Lips. And just reset my view. Come in here. Just going to add some color to her little lips. And it looks too orange. So I'm going to come into red, pull that red down, and pull up the blue. Also go back to my RGB and just make it a little bit lighter. So right about there looks pretty good. Now as far as cheeks, just add a little bit of color to her lids. I always do this. I always like to add just a little bit of color to the whole face, the nose, around the mouth. And then I have to feather that out right about there. But I do want to come in here to the red again and just reduce that a bit. It's a little orange, and I do want to reduce the RGB and bring up pink a bit more. There we go. And I'm just going to add a little bit more to this side. And I always zoom out when I look at what I'm doing with this, because just like when you're doing traditional art and painting, you should always step back to see it better. So that looks nice. We're going to go ahead and flatten it. Now I want to add a new soft light layer, and I'm going to choose a relatively neutral skinish white Caucasian color. Something like this, I think. And I'm just going to paint a little bit of light onto her face because I think it will look better. And then zoom in because it will probably take some contrast away from her. And then add a mask, and then you can just reduce your flow and you can paint that off a bit of the areas that you didn't want it to really be. I think that's a bit better. Just going to reduce it down here. Okay, duplicate my layer. Let's come into Camera Raw Filter. Now, here we have no texture. Let's go to Effects. Let's add some grain. Just enough grain so that it looks like her skin has some texture again. Click OK. And hold down Option or Alt with your mask. Change to a white brush. And then you can come in here and you can paint that grain onto her skin so that it looks like she has some texture. Just like so. We're going to feather it out, reduce it a little bit, flatten that sucker. And now we're going to duplicate our layer. We're going to change blend mode to linear light, filter other high pass, and this is to sharpen the face. And specifically when I was shooting Canon, I had to do this a lot just because the images were so soft if you zoomed in. Click OK, alter option, and you're going to paint the effect on the areas you want it. So for this image, I definitely want her eyes to be sharper, her little mouth, her hair, the headband, maybe this little piece here, probably her nostrils, eyebrows, earrings. Feather that a little bit, zoom out. And flatten. And I'm just going to change my crop on this now because it looks a little off. And there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. See you in the next video.